and then along came this drug called crystal meth. And once I tried crystal meth, I was hooked from day one. And all my little rules and my discipline went right out the window. And, I didn't know how to handle it at first. I remember doing crystal meth on a Friday afternoon, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And, normally my rules were Saturday night at midnight, I quit. And then I recover on Sunday, I go back to work. Well, Monday morning, when it's time to get up for work, I was still awake from doing that crystal meth on Friday. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't go to work like this. And so I got a little bit more to do a little bit more so I could function at work, because I had to produce, because I'm a high producing loan officer. And it never stopped. It just turned into a all day, everyday addiction. I'd wear a suit and tie to work, and I would take a break and go down to the bathroom, hang my suit jacket up on the stall and pull out a needle and stick it in my arm, get high, and go back to work. And, midnight, I'd still be at the bank, and I'd have people come in. I'm doing drug deals at the bank, on my desk at the bank, where I've got all these mortgage loans I'm writing up. And then I got lines of meth, this long, and I'm doing drug deals. It was insanity, but it ended up catching up with me. And so, I ended up getting fired from my corporate job because I'm strung out. Just to put it bluntly, I was strung out. And so I get fired from my corporate job, and I decide, I'll just open my own mortgage company because I know how to do it. I see these brokers making, 2 or 3 times the money I'm making, and they're doing a third of the work, and I'll just open my own. So again, I'm kicking butt, taking names, opening my own mortgage company. I'm 27 years old. I have a house on one side of town, condo on the other side, a sports car and a Harley. On the outside looking in, a lot of my friends, I'm sure, were envious because I got it all going on. And but I had plaques on the wall from the mayor of Tulsa, Certificate of Excellence Award. There were months that I brought in, $20,000 in a month at 27 years old after I paid everybody, and so. Yeah, I was doing good according to the world. And again, my friends were probably envious, but what most people didn't know is I had a serious drug habit, and I was an all day, everyday user, and I just couldn't kick it. And I knew I had a problem, right? And I'd be praying to God because I grew up in a praying home, so I prayed about everything. I prayed about drug deals to go through. I prayed about everything. So it says in the Bible, pray about all things. Well, I did. I don't know if it was right or wrong, but I prayed about drug deals to go through. I prayed about everything, and I'm still that way today. I pray about everything. So most people looking at me thought I had it all going on, but I would try to get control of this drug habit, and I'd make it a week or two, and I'd be like, man, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm home free. I'm going to get clean this time. And then a knock would come on the door, or the doorbell would ring, and somebody you haven't seen in 3 years would show up with hey, guess what? I owe you money. I brought you a free bag of dope. That never happens when you're not trying to quit. But when you're trying to quit, like all of a sudden this a drug addict's going to pay you back. That doesn't happen. But all of a sudden, while I'm 2 weeks clean, they're going to show up and now they're paying me back. Well, what choice do you have? You have to get high, right? And so it was just stuff like that, and so I was praying back then, Lord, deliver me from this meth addiction, please. It's got me. And I guess the Lord heard my prayers, because on January 18th of 2001, the SWAT team kicked my door in, raided my house, and guns drawn. It was crazy. It was out of a movie. It was surreal, but took me to jail for manufacturing and possession of a firearm and commission of a felony, and you name it. I had a 3-page rap sheet, and I was still in my suit and tie from work. I still had my leather jacket over my sports coat, and I had a meth pipe in my hand, but I still dressed like a banker, and so they took me to jail, and I spent either 12 or 14 days in jail before I could bond out. And, they were trying to give me life in prison, my first offense ever. They had me all over the news as the largest manufacturer and distributor of GHB in the entire state, which was a new designer drug. And, it was true. I was manufacturing, I was selling it, but I was selling it a couple of years earlier. By the time they caught up with me, I just had 11 close friends. They'd pitch in and I'd make it and I'd split it up, and I wasn't doing it for profit. It was just, for pleasure. But anyway, so they took me to jail. I bonded out. I fought this case for 2.5 years, and I ended up plea bargaining, from life in prison down to a 15-year prison sentence. And so, I'm suit and tie running a mortgage company one day, and I'm shackles and chain on the bus to prison the next day. And you talk about a rude awakening, man. I wasn't prepared for all that. But what do you do? I didn't have a choice, right? I got 15 years to do. And so I got on the prison bus and loaded up and took me out to a place called Alva, Oklahoma, out in the Panhandle. And it was like an 8-hour drive. You shackle and chain you so your wrists are bruised and bloody by the time you get there. It's just a horrible experience. And we got to the prison yard. I'll never forget, coming down the road, maybe a half mile from the prison, I could see the lights off in the distance, look like big stadium lights. And then we pull into the prison yard, and then they stop, and we get out of the bus. Me and 6 or 7 other guys, and there was probably 2,000 inmates out on the yard. And we get off the bus and we're lining up, and they're all the guys on the yard are doing whatever they do, smoking, working out, playing basketball, whatever. And they're busy. And then we get off the bus, and it's like everybody went silent on the yard. You could hear a pin drop, and they all went silent and looked over at us. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're checking out the fresh meat, and I'm the fresh meat. Talk about a horrifying experience. I'll never forget that day. But what do you do, man? You got to get, you got to get in life. You got 15 years to do. You're stuck. There's no way out. So I just, started doing life in prison, and I just, what do you do? I'm just trying to remember the thoughts I had. It's just I'm really here. Oh my gosh, how did I get here? And how do I get out of here? But there's no getting out of there. You're stuck. And so I remember, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks after I got there, I was walking the laundry carrying my dirty clothes, or my prison grays, is what we called them. And I was walking the laundry, carrying my laundry, and I looked up and I noticed the razor wire, and I noticed the sun shining on it and just gleaming and reflecting on the razor wire. And I said, God, when I was asking you to deliver me from this meth addiction, I was thinking more along the lines of a 12-step program. like prison isn't what I had in mind. This is not what I wanted to do. And I heard the Lord laugh at me. And I don't know if it was an audible voice, but I don't know. But I felt it. I know that I heard the Lord laugh out loud. Only time the Lord's ever laughed at me was that I heard him, and he laughed. And he said, I know what you thought, David, but I have a different plan for your life. And I'm reminded of Joseph in the Bible, because it says Joseph, he was traded in, he was sold into slavery, and then he was put into prison. But when you read the word, it says he was blessed in prison. Let me tell you, brother, I was blessed when I was in prison. So when I got there, I went to what they call military, or a drug offenders work camp, right? So it's like a military boot camp, but it's for drug addicts. They take all these drug addicts and throw them in boot camp, make them, run 10, 15 miles a day and push-ups and all this. And so that's where I went for the first 3 months. And then after you graduate from boot camp, then you go into a regular prison yard. And so when you get to the regular prison yard, then you got to find a job. And finding a job might take 2-3 months to find a job. And in the meantime, you get to clean. And it's like a big dormitory room, with, I don't know, a couple hundred bunk beds in there, something like that. And you and 50 or 70 other five other guys are cleaning all day long for 8-9 hours a day. And you can't sit down, you can't take a break. You get a 15-minute in the morning and 15-minute in the afternoon and a half-hour lunch break. Other than that, you're cleaning. And let me tell you, 50 or 75 guys can have that room spotless in an hour or two. It's spick and span, but you got to keep cleaning. And so it was just busy work. I would walk around my bunk bed and dust it, 75 times a day. I'd, sweep the floor 50 times a day and mop it 50 times a day. It was horrible, man, because it was just busy work. And I would look at the clock and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to look at it for a while because this time's going too slow. I won't look at the clock for like 2 hours, and then I'd look up and think it'd been 2 hours and be like 2.5 minutes. It's like, what? Like, it was just the slowest time in the world, and I hated it. I hated it with a passion. Like, I had done 30 days of solitary confinement where I was locked down for 23 and a half hours a day, and they don't let you out of the cell. Like every other day or every 2-3 days, they'll let you out in the shower, but that's it. And that was easier time for me to do than this cleaning. I don't know what it was. It drove me nuts. And so one day I'm talking to my bunkmate, the guy next to me, and we're sitting there, just standing there talking, doing this, dusting our bunk beds, so we're keeping busy. And a guy walks by and he says, "Hey man, do either one of you guys know how to sew?" And normally I would have said, "No, I don't know how to sew." But that day I said, "Why do you ask?" And he said, "Well, the sewing machine operator just got released. He went home, so there's a position open on the sewing machine." I said, "I know how to sew, brother. I know how to sew. Been sewing all my life," which was a lie. But yeah. My brother and my dad had both owned upholstery companies, and so I had seen them sewing my whole life. That part was true, so I didn't stretch the truth too far, I had seen them sewing my whole life. I just never done it myself. So I'm like, "Oh, yeah, man, family business, man. Upholstery, that's what we do, man. Yeah, I'm in." So he takes me over to laundry, and there's a sewing machine with a guy sitting there sewing, and then there's an empty sewing machine to the left of him. He says, "Have a seat right there. We'll get you an interview soon." I'm like, "Cool." And so I sat down. And then I nudged the guy next to me and I introduced myself. I said, "Hey, man, I'm Scarberry. How you doing, brother?" He's like, I'm Mortensen. Nice to meet you." I'm like, "Man, I really could use this job. I really need this job. How do I get it?" He's like, "Piece of cake, man. You just show them that you know how to sew and you got the job." I'm like, "Cool, right on." I was like, "Hey, brother, it's been a while, man." I was like, can you show me how you turn this machine on?" And so there's like an on and off button right on front of the machine that if I would have looked, I would have just saw it. But I was so nervous and all, I didn't even see it. So he reaches over, he flips it on. I was like, "Thank you, man." I was like, "You know what? I don't know if I've ever used this particular make and model machine before." I was like, "Man, can you show me a quick stitch or two?" And he's like, "Sure, not a problem." So he comes, sits down at my sewing machine, and he puts a piece of fabric under the foot of the machine, and there's a foot pedal on the floor. And so he pushes the foot pedal, and it goes forward. And then there's a little lever right here to your right, and you push it down, you hit the foot pedal, and it goes in reverse. So he shows me forward, backwards. And then he gets up and sits down at his sewing machine. As soon as he sits down, the guard walks around the corner and says, "All right, Scarberry, let's see what you have." and so I take the same piece of fabric that he just put in the machine and I hit the same foot pedal. I go, and I hit the lever over here, and I hit the foot pedal. It goes in reverse, and he goes, "You got the job." I was like, "Hallelujah, praise God!" I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing, brother, but I just bluffed my way into a sewing machine job. So now I'm the new sewing machine operator on the prison yard. And so, the guy next to me, Mortensen, he was a good guy. He taught me how to, sew over the next, several weeks and months. And we were just like hemming up jeans or sewing the socks, the end of the socks where the toe pokes through. We'd sew those shut, and give them back to the new guys and stuff like that. I had a hustle where I was making face masks because I kept the lights on all night. So I'd make face masks for people to sleep with at night, and they'd give me a pouch of tobacco or two, to make those and smuggle them out to them. So I had a little hustle going on in the laundry as well. But so fast forward, I don't know, maybe 2-3 months, and we're sitting around having coffee, and the guard over laundry is talking to us, and he asks our opinion. And he's like, "Hey guys, what do you think? I'm going to buy all new mattresses for the yard, all new pillows and workout equipment and stuff like that. And I want to get you guys' opinion on the color we should buy a vinyl." And my mouth opens up, and out of my mouth, I didn't consciously think this or mean to say it, but my mouth opened up, and out of my mouth comes, "Hey, why don't we just reupholster everything?" And the guard's like, that's a good idea. You're in charge, Scarberry. And so I go from not even know how to sew to now I'm in charge of recovering everything on the entire prison yard. And I don't know what I'm doing, man. Like I said, I saw my dad and my brother do it, but I don't know how to do that. And so anyway, we got the vinyl in and we started taking stuff apart and just trying to figure out how to do it. We ended up getting, all like 3,000 mattresses recovered, 3,000 pillows, and like 2 or 3 workout stations with workout equipment. Got them all done, and they look good. I don't know how we pulled it off. Well, I know it was God. So then one day I come in, and it's a laundry to work that morning, and there's a newspaper waiting on me. And so, long story short, man, they take a picture of me sitting at my sewing machine, looking over, grinning at them, and I hit the front page of the local city newspaper, and the caption reads, "Inmate saves Department of Corrections." I think it was $3,800 or something like that. And then writes an article on me, how I come up with this brilliant idea to reupholster everything and how I oversaw it. And so I got touted as a hero, and I didn't even know how to sew when I got the job.
Wow.
This newspaper article, the front page of the newspaper, it's front page. And they clip it out and they put it in what they call your jacket. When you go to prison, you have a jacket or a file on you, right? It's your permanent file. So everything you do in prison goes in that file, good, bad, or indifferent, man. It gets written up and put in that file. So that was one of the first blessings the Lord gave me, that put that in my file. And then, a couple other things, I was the only guy in prison with a college degree. And so I started tutoring guys, teach them how to read and write, help them get their GED. That got written up, put in my file. I started teaching or facilitating like Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll just be honest with you, man, a lot of what I was doing was just to keep busy, I got 15 years, man. I want this time to go as quick as I can. So I'm going to stay as busy as I can. And I'm not going to get caught up in all the little cliques in prison stuff. I'm just going to keep focused and get work done and do my time and get out. And so, I started teaching Narcotics and Alcoholics Anonymous, and that got written up and put in my file. Me and another guy, we'd go out and smoke every night. And one night we decided to pray. I don't know why. We just decided, hey, we're gonna sit here and pray to Jesus. And so we went back inside, and somebody's like, "Where you guys been? Out smoking work?" "Yeah, but we were praying too, man. You should join us tomorrow." And so we kept doing that every night. And by the time I left that yard, man, I counted one night 48 hardened criminals standing around the flagpole in the prison yard, holding hands, just praying to Jesus. And it was just things like this that got written up, put in my file, that God kept blessing me with and opening doors for me. And then one other thing is I owned a mortgage company, and so one day the guards were making fun of me because they're looking through my mugshot, and they're like, "Man, what are you doing wearing a suit and tie in your mugshot?" And they're actually giving me a hard time because I was wearing a suit and tie in my mugshot. And so I explained to them, well, I own a mortgage company, and I was at work doing a mortgage loan. Then I had to go to court, and I went from court to prison, so I'm wearing a suit and tie. And so long story short, I started doing mortgage loans from the inside of prison for my counselor and some of the guards. Now, I don't know how legal that was, so I don't think that got written up and put in my file, but the whole point of the story is God's hand of favor was on me when I was in prison, and he just blessed me, and I didn't realize it back then, until he showed me years later what he had done for me. So after serving about 10 months in prison, on a 15-year sentence, I was sleeping one night, and the guards woke me up at 4:30 in the morning and said, "Scarberry, pack your stuff. You're going back to court. Going back to Tulsa." I'm like, "What?" And I ask questions. Your property. When you're in prison, your property. So you just do what you're told. So I packed up all my belongings. I got on the prison bus, shackled and chained again, 8 hours back to Tulsa, and I went before the judge on what they call a judicial review. And I'll never forget the words that she said to me that day. I stood before that judge, and she said, "Mr. Scarberry, in all my years as a judge, I've never seen anyone that has She said, "I've never seen anyone that has accomplished so much in such a short amount of time." And she said, because of that, I'm going to suspend the remainder of your sentence, and you're going home today. But if you so much as jaywalk in the next 15 years or 14 years, 2 months, then you're coming back to prison for the full 15 years from day one. So they tried to give me life in prison, and I fought it. I went through like 4 lawyers, fought it for 2.5 years, and I plea bargained down to 15 years. I get to go home in 10 months. Are you kidding me? You can't tell me God's hand wasn't on that.